My silver hair, carefully smoothed, caught the faint porch light as Merid opened the door, her Merlot-colored cashmere a stark contrast to the snowy dusk. The sweet onion galette, baked with hands that now ached, felt heavy in my grasp, a symbol of a love unacknowledged. "Oh," she said, her smile a fleeting shadow. "Zephra, we weren't expecting you just yet." "Right on time," I'd replied, the words catching in my throat like unshed tears. But inside, the laughter spilling from the dining room already felt like a cruel punchline. 9 chairs circled the mahogany table, each bearing a name card. Aldrich's father's place, Kieran's place, now held a stranger. And for me, nothing. No chair, no acknowledgement. I looked at Aldrich, busy pouring wine, oblivious. Where should I sit? The question hung in the air thick with unspoken disappointment. Merid's almost apologetic tone was the final blow. "There's no seat for you." Without a word, I placed the galette on the buffet, its warmth a stark contrast to the sudden chill that enveloped me as I walked back into the cold. The door closed softly behind me, a silent punctuation mark on my exclusion. By the time I reached my car, the heat rising in my chest was a confusing blend of grief and a slow-burning fury. If you've ever felt that sting of being overlooked, of your efforts going unseen, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and get ready for a story where one woman discovers that sometimes the quietest actions speak the loudest. Let's unravel this. Back in my quiet house, the ticking of the mantel clock was the only sound louder than the frantic beating of my own heart. The scent of cinnamon from the galette now felt like a mockery. Jude's gold-wrapped gift remained on the entryway table unopened. In the kitchen, the galette sat untouched. I poured a small glass of wine and sat at Kieran's old oak desk, the familiar warmth of the lamp doing little to soothe the coldness that had settled deep within me. For 2 years, I'd avoided my estate files. There seemed no reason to dwell on such things. But Meridon's casual mention of a mortgage account weeks ago, scribbled on a Christmas card, now echoed in my mind. A mortgage I had co-signed. An uneasy feeling propelled me to my laptop. My old password still worked. The portal to their finances opened slowly, revealing a truth I hadn't anticipated. The mortgage was there, just as I remembered. But then I saw the transfers, not from their usual account, but from a linked estate management trust. My trust. My breath hitched. That account was supposed to be dormant. My fingers trembled as I clicked deeper. 4 withdrawals in the last 6 months. Small enough to go unnoticed, labeled innocuously, roof repair, legal retainer, interior design, consultation. They didn't know I still held full digital power of attorney, never revoked. I was the unseen guardian, the name lingering in the background, a silent witness to their quiet deception. My name on that account now felt like a brand. The blue leatherette file, embossed with gold, Wren family estate plan, sat beside my cooling wine. After Kieran's death, I had meticulously rewritten everything, ensuring Aldrich's security. The life insurance, the deeds, the trust accounts, even our beloved lake house, a sanctuary meant to keep a piece of his father alive. Sole beneficiary. It had never occurred to me that he might forget who provided that security. The next morning, Flavia arrived, her keen eyes immediately noticing the storm behind my forced calm. Over steaming mugs, I recounted the Christmas dinner, the empty chair, the unsettling discoveries. She listened patiently, then offered a stark observation. "They only call you when they need something notarized, Zephra." There was no malice in her voice, only a sharp clarity I'd been too blind to see. "I never liked her," I admitted, referring to Merid. "She tolerates you. She calls you intense, too proper, too involved. She once told Aldrich, 'You meddle.'" A bitter laugh escaped me. Flavia's next words hit with the force of a physical blow. "What they're doing isn't accidental, it's measured. They want your resources without your presence. They want you invisible but available. It's financial grooming with a thank you card attached." The missed birthdays, the dinners only when documents needed signing, the subtle shift in tone when I asked questions, it all clicked into place, a chilling mosaic of calculated manipulation. I glanced again at the will, Aldrich's name circled in ink from 5 years ago, the lake house, the residual assets, the untouched annuity. It was all there, as I had written it, but the story had changed, and it was time for me to write a new one. The next morning, the house held the familiar stillness that follows deep disappointment. I dressed deliberately, charcoal plants, a soft turtleneck, Kieran's favorite gray wool cardigan, not for them, but for myself. At the desk, the glow of the laptop screen illuminated the fiduciary dashboard of the Wren Development Trust established for Aldrich's expanding law firm years ago. "We'll build something with integrity," he'd said, his hand trembling slightly as he accepted the check. "Something you'll be proud of." I believed him. The trust remained in my name. With a click, I initiated a full withdrawal. The system responded instantly. Temporary administrative freeze initiated, pending internal review. 72 hours. That's all the time I had to formally voice my concerns. And my concerns were legion. Statements showing withdrawals for lavish personal expenses, high-end interior design firms, boutique travel agencies, a cryptic wire transfer labeled consultation. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in years. Nadia Klein. The voice on the other end was crisp and efficient, just as I remembered. "Nadia, it's Zefra." A pause, then a warmth that surprised me. "Zefra! My God, how long has it been?" "Too long," I replied. "Listen, I have something you need to see. Quietly. It concerns my son, his filings, and a trust I created for him." Without hesitation, she said, "Email it to me. Everything." I sent the ledger files and login logs, then closed the laptop. My hands were steady. This wasn't vengeance, it was protection. I wasn't destroying his future, I was extinguishing a slow burn. They underestimated me. They assumed I'd fade quietly into a world of cardigans and crossword puzzles, forgetting that before I was Aldrich's mother, I was Zefra Wren. And I certainly hadn't forgotten how to read a ledger.
In the dusty attic, behind an old cedar trunk, sat a box marked Winter 2002, in Kieran's familiar block letters. I carried it downstairs, as if it were filled with the most fragile of memories. Inside, nestled amongst soft plaid and brittle newspaper, was a bundle of his letters, tied with twine. Letters written during business trips or after our stubborn arguments. Tonight they felt different. One envelope, thinner than the rest, was dated just 2 weeks before he died. "Zeph," it read, "if Aldrich ever forgets who you are, remind him you were once the storm and the shelter." Clutching that sentence, I sat at the kitchen table and finally allowed myself to cry. Not for the Christmas dinner, not for the pilfered accounts, but for the woman I had almost let disappear. The woman who had once commanded courtrooms, whispered bedtime stories, and navigated grief with a black blazer and sheer willpower. The woman who had made Aldrich floss safe, because she had always made it so. I cried for Kieran, for the man who truly saw me, who held space for both my strength and my vulnerability, who, with his last breaths, warned me I might need to remind our son of my true nature. He was right. It wasn't about the money anymore. It wasn't even about the trust or the will. It was about voice, and I had been silent for too long. I refolded the letter, placed it in the center of my dining table, and lit the holiday candle. Then I walked to my office, opened a new legal document, and began to rewrite the future, with my name printed in bold. The lake house file was in the fireproof box beneath the linen closet, where it had been since I created Wren Stillwater Holdings LLC in 2011. Aldrich never knew. Back then, a part of me, even amidst the early slights, had felt a flicker of unease. Merritt's forced smiles when I offered help, Aldrich's increasingly dismissive responses to my questions. The deed was legally sound, my name and entity the sole signatories. I took out my pen and began drafting the formal removal of Aldrich and Marie as successor trustees. Not out of anger, but because they had reduced me to a mere provision in their lives. Next, my will. Updated after Kieran's death, but untouched since. Aldrich's name was everywhere. Residual assets, life insurance, even my grandmother's jewelry. With a steady hand, I removed each line. In their place, I added a new beneficiary, the Haven House Shelter for Women. I had volunteered there, witnessing women rebuilding their lives after being silenced and erased. It felt right that my legacy would empower others to reclaim their voices. The documents, printed on thick ivory stock, felt substantial in my hands. Flavia arrived that afternoon to witness the signing. As she read the new beneficiary clause, she looked up, her eyes meeting mine. "They've lost more than they know," she said softly. I nodded, a quiet sense of liberation washing over me. That evening, the silence in the house felt different, imbued with a newfound sense of peace. The phone rang just after 10. Aldrich's name flashed on the screen. For a long moment, I simply watched it blink. It stopped, then started again, more insistent. On the third call, I answered. His voice was tight, laced with panic hidden beneath a veneer of professional composure. "Mom? Hey, I'm trying to figure out, did something happen? Our payroll didn't process. The firm's account is locked. The bank won't give me details." I listened in silence as his words tumbled out. A frantic list of failing systems. Held client funds, bouncing checks. Then a hesitant, quieter question. "Is this... Did you do something?" I took a slow breath. "You uninvited me from Christmas dinner." A pause. "What?" "You uninvited me," I repeated, my voice even. "So I've uninvited you from my estate." "Wait, Mom, that's not what happened. There was a mix-up. Marie thought..." "No." She didn't think anything. She spoke clearly, and you stood beside her. The silence on the other end stretched, thick and heavy. Then a mumbled word I didn't quite catch before the line went dead. A few minutes later, a text message from Merid. "We see what this is. You're weaponizing your money to punish us. That's not love, Zephra. That's control." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. Respect was the only currency I ever asked for. I silenced my phone. Let them grapple with the consequences of their actions, the same discomfort they had so readily inflicted upon me for years. I was no longer their financial safety net. I was still their mother, still Zephra Wren, but now I was something else. The storm they hadn't prepared for. Standing by the kitchen window, I watched the wind lift the corner of the porch rug as the sky darkened with more snow. The lake house was quiet, a comforting stillness blanketing everything. Arriving on New Year's Eve with a single bag and my unapologetically made cranberry sauce, I unpacked slowly. There was no rush, no empty seat at a crowded table. By late afternoon, the fireplace crackled merrily, warming the already baked galette. I set a single place at the table, my mother's china, a folded linen napkin, a glass of white wine beside the cranberry sauce. One plate, one chair, one candle lit for Kieran, a tradition unbroken since his passing. Whispering his name, the room felt a little less empty. Later, in the den, I logged onto an online forum I'd found during a sleepless night. Second Voice, Women in Law, Women in Life. A thread titled Late Blooming Power resonated deeply with its stories of quietly dismissed women reclaiming their strength. I read every word, seeing my own experience reflected in countless paragraphs. An email confirmed my acceptance to speak at the Regional Estate Planning Conference in March. New Frontiers in Ethical Trust Structuring. Not flashy, but mine. Smiling to myself, I closed the laptop. Outside, the moon painted the snow-covered lake with silver light. At midnight, wrapped in Kieran's flannel coat, I stepped onto the porch and whispered my resolutions to the wind. No more disappearing, no more guilt disguised as obligation. I would write. I would teach. I would reclaim my voice, not to shout, but simply to be heard.
The morning after New Year's, the lake was a pristine sheet of frost. My boots crunched softly on the snow as I walked the familiar path Kieran and I used to take, hand in hand. My hand, tucked in my coat, held his letter, the words etched in my memory. Remind him you were once the storm and the shelter. The anger had dissipated, replaced by a quiet knowing. Pausing beneath the bare pine at the end of the shoreline, I whispered, not in grief, but with certainty, love isn't about who gets a seat. It's about who sees you sitting there. The wind rustled the branches overhead. I imagined Kieran, somewhere beyond the silence, understanding. Turning back towards the house, the aroma of warming cranberry sauce beckoned. Just one plate, one chair, the place I had made for myself. Stepping inside, I closed the door behind me. What's the most powerful act of self-respect you've ever witnessed or experienced? Share your stories in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories of justice and empowerment.